All right, so you know how much I love a good deep dive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, get this. You guys sent in some market analysis that is blowing my mind.
Hmm.
It seems like the big players, the institutional investors,
Right.
they're making some seriously interesting moves.
Right.
Like we're talking about companies from all over the map, a gaming retailer,
Oh, wow.
a Bitcoin miner,
Okay.
a semiconductor giant, a data analytics powerhouse, a tech titan,
Wow.
and even
The range?
a financial services innovator.
Yeah.
So we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about GameStop, Marathon Digital Holdings, AMD, Palantir, Apple,
Okay.
and SoFi Technologies.
Wow.
You ready to dive in?
I am. Let's go.
All right, first up, GameStop,
Okay.
GME, as you know it, on Wall Street.
Yeah.
They're really trying to reinvent themselves. Remember back in the day, the whole meme stock frenzy?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it seems like they're trying to move past that, become
Yeah.
a serious contender in the tech world. They've made some leadership changes. They're pushing hard into e-commerce. They even launched their own NFT marketplace.
Really?
It's ambitious.
It is ambitious, that's for sure. I mean, trying to transform a traditional, brick and mortar retailer into a digital powerhouse.
Exactly.
That's a big leap.
It is. It is a big lead. But here's what's interesting, right?
That's it.
Institutional investors, they're starting to pay attention.
Hmm.
Now the question is, do they see real potential in GameStop's transformation?
Yeah.
Or are they just, chasing the next big thing?
That's a good question.
Right. It's the million-dollar question. I mean, let's be honest. The competition in online retail,
Oh, it's fierce.
it's fierce. And the NFT market, I mean, that's still finding its legs.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think is drawing these big investors to GameStop?
Well, you have to remember they're always looking for opportunities
Right.
with big returns,
Makes sense.
even if it means taking on more risk. So if GameStop can actually pull this off, if they can make this turnaround happen,
Right.
the payoff could be enormous.
Huge.
And that potential for, really shaking things up in the market, even in a crowded market like this,
Yeah.
that's something that can really catch their eye.
So they're not just buying into the hype?
Not necessarily, no. I think they're seeing the potential
Yeah.
for a real shakeup.
Okay. So they see a possible game changer.
Potentially, yeah. But of course, it's not all sunshine and roses for GameStop. I
Right.
mean, let's face it, their recent financial performance, not exactly inspiring.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag for any investor. And then there's the whole short squeeze thing that happened with GME.
Oh, right.
That kind of volatility
Yeah.
that can attract a certain type of institutional investor,
Mm-hmm.
the ones who thrive on those market swings.
Oh, so they're kind of like the high rollers of the investing world.
You could say that, yeah. They're the ones who are willing to take bigger risks for the chance of bigger rewards.
All right. So for those who might not be familiar with this whole short squeeze thing, can you explain it?
Sure. So basically, a short squeeze happens when a stock price suddenly jumps way up.
Okay.
And this forces the investors who bet against the stock, we call them short sellers,
Right.
they have to buy shares to cover their losses, right?
Makes sense.
And that buying frenzy, it just pushes the price up even higher.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly, yeah. It can be a wild ride.
That sounds like it.
It definitely can be. And while that kind of volatility can scare off some investors,
Sure.
others see it as an opportunity. It really depends on their investment strategy and
Yeah.
their risk tolerance.
Okay, that makes sense. So GameStop, it's a bit of a gamble,
Yeah,
but with the potential for a big payoff if they can make it work.
exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears completely. Let's talk about cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Our next company, Marathon Digital Holdings, or MRIA, they are all about mining Bitcoin and to talk about a volatile market. I mean, their fortunes are tied to the unpredictable world of Bitcoin prices
Oh, yeah.
and the ever-changing costs of mining those digital coins.
Sure.
So what's the deal with MIRA? How are they attracting institutional investors?
Well, what's interesting about MRA is that they offer institutional investors a way to get involved in the Bitcoin market
Okay.
without actually holding the cryptocurrency itself.
So it's like a safer way to play the crypto game.
You could say that, yeah, at least in their eyes.
Makes sense.
They're essentially betting on Bitcoin's success,
Right.
but through a company that's generating actual revenue
Yeah.
from mining.
Okay. So they're kind of like the middleman.
In a way, yeah.
That's a clever strategy.
It is, and they're strategically positioned
Yeah.
within a very rapidly growing industry.
And if Bitcoin keeps going up, they could be sitting pretty.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if Bitcoin's value keeps climbing, MRA could be, sitting on a gold mine. But, of course, there are risks, like any investment.
Of course.
The cryptocurrency market
Oh, it is notorious.
is notoriously volatile.
Yeah.
And if Bitcoin crashes,
Right.
MRA crashes with it.
So it's a high-stakes game.
It definitely is. High risk, high reward.
Yeah. Now, what I found really interesting about MRA is their focus on renewable energy
Oh, yeah.
for their mining operations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone's talking about ESG investing these days, right?
ESG, yeah.
Environmental, social, and governance.
Absolutely.
So this seems like a really smart move, not just ethically,
Yeah.
but for business, too.
Oh, absolutely. Cryptocurrency mining, it has a bit of a reputation for being very energy intensive.
A lot of power.
A lot of power, exactly. And MRA, they're trying to change that narrative
Right.
by using renewable energy sources.
So they're appealing to those ESG-conscious investors,
Exactly.
which are a growing force.
They are a growing force, absolutely. And plus, by reducing their reliance on fossil fuels, they're potentially lowering their operating costs.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing. It's a win-win.
Sounds like they're trying to have their cake and eat it, too.
They are. They're trying to, capitalize on the crypto boom,
Yeah.
but also appeal to that growing demand for sustainable investing.
Very smart.
Very smart. They're trying to position themselves at the forefront of a changing industry.
Okay, so MARA, definitely one to watch.
For sure.
All right, let's move on to something a little more, well, down to earth.
Okay.
Let's talk about advanced micro devices, or AMD.
AMD, yeah.
They are a major player in the world of semiconductors.
Huge.
They're constantly battling it out with giants like Intel and NVIDIA
Oh, yeah.
for a piece of that tech pie.
Right.
And you know what?
What?
They've been making some serious waves lately.
Really?
Their CPUs and GPUs, they've been steadily gaining market share,
Impressive.
thanks to some really impressive innovation and strong product launches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, AMD is showing the world that even in an industry dominated by those giants,
Right.
there's always room for a challenger.
There is, if you have the right tech and the right strategy.
Exactly.
And it seems like they do.
Yeah, they're doing something right.
They are.
Now, their success with their EPYC processors, that's a perfect example.
Okay.
They're taking on Intel in the data center market,
Wow, that's a big deal.
which is huge.
It is.
And it seems like institutional investors,
Yeah.
they're sensing that AMD is onto something big. What do you think is driving their interest?
Well, I think they see AMD as a real growth story,
Okay.
especially for those investors who are looking to get exposure
Yeah.
to the booming cloud computing sector.
Right.
Their data center business is really challenging Intel's dominance.
Yeah.
And that kind of disruption, that gets institutional investors excited.
They like to shake things up a bit.
They do. They see a company that's not afraid to, go head to head with the biggest players.
It's like a David and Goliath story, but in the world of tech.
Exactly.
And remember that AMD acquired Xilinx.
Oh, right. Yeah,
That was a big move,
it was.
bringing in expertise in a whole new area of computing.
That was a brilliant strategic move.
It was, wasn't it?
It allows AMD to, diversify their portfolio, tap into some really high growth markets.
Right.
Like data centers, even the automotive industry.
Wow.
Investors, they love that kind of forward thinking.
Makes sense.
Especially in a fast-paced industry like tech, it shows that they're not just riding the current wave.
Right.
They're actually preparing for the future.
So they're playing the long game,
They are.
not just chasing short-term gains.
Exactly.
It sounds like AMD is checking all the boxes for those institutional investors.
They are. Innovation, growth potential, and a strategic vision for the future.
AMD, definitely a company to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, a company to watch.
It's pretty amazing how AMD is shaking up the tech world.
It is.
But you know what else is pretty amazing?
What's that?
Our next company,
Okay.
Palantir Technologies, PLTR.
Palantir.
They're known for their work with big data.
Right.
And we're not just talking about, your average spreadsheet.
No.
This is the kind of data that governments
Yeah.
and huge corporations rely on.
To make really big decisions.
Exactly. Critical decisions.
They're in a fascinating position.
Okay, more.
They provide mission-critical software
Okay.
to both government agencies
Right.
and large corporations.
So they're working with both sides.
Yeah, and with the way things are going with data, data-driven decision-making
Everyone wants data.
across pretty much every industry,
Yeah.
Palantir is in a good spot.
They are.
They're like the brains behind the operation,
I like that.
helping these clients make sense of mountains and mountains of data,
Right.
turning it into something they can actually use.
So they're like data detectives,
Kind of.
uncovering all the hidden patterns and connections.
Exactly. But instead of like magnifying glasses and fingerprints, they're using algorithms and artificial intelligence.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And that's the kind of expertise that everyone wants.
In this data-driven world.
Yeah. And it's interesting because while they are known for those big government contracts,
Like intelligence agencies and all that.
yeah, defense departments, things like that, they're also trying to break into the commercial sector.
Okay, so they're not just sticking with the government.
Not at all. They're applying their skills
Yeah.
to all sorts of things. Healthcare, finance, you name it.
Makes sense. I mean, everyone needs to make sense of their data, no matter what business you're in.
Exactly.
But I'm sure they face competition.
Oh, of course, the data analytics market.
I bet it's crowded.
It is. There are tons of companies trying to do the same thing.
So what makes Palantir stand out?
Well, a couple things. First, their tech is top-notch. They've put a lot of resources into developing those platforms.
So they're not messing around.
Nope. They can handle huge data sets.
Okay.
Really complex stuff. And second, those government connections
Right.
give them credibility and a level of trust.
Hard to beat that.
Very hard. And those are big draws for institutional investors. They
It-
see a company with a solid track record
Yeah.
and a real competitive edge.
Okay, so brains and brawn.
You got it.
But, we can't have a deep dive.
Into institutional investors.
Talking about
The big one,
Apple.
Apple, exactly.
They are just everywhere.
Everywhere. New iPhones, sleek Macs.
Those earbuds.
Those iconic earbuds.
I love those.
They just dominate.
They do.
And institutional investors love them for it.
But why?
Consistency.
Okay.
Dominance. They make a ton of money year after year.
Yeah?
And their brand loyalty is incredible.
I've waited in line for a new iPhone.
Me too. People line up for days.
It's crazy.
To get the newest Apple thing, it's like a cultural phenomenon. It's not just about the gadgets, though.
Right. They have all those services now.
They do the App Store, Apple Music, iCloud. They're building this ecosystem.
It keeps people hooked.
It does. And those services bring in recurring revenue.
Okay.
Money that comes in every month.
I see.
And those usually have higher profit margins
Than just selling hardware.
Exactly. Investors love that.
That consistency, that profitability.
It makes Apple a safe bet.
Makes sense.
And don't forget about Apple's commitment to being environmentally friendly.
That's a big deal these days.
It is. They're pushing for carbon neutrality, sustainable practices.
That ESG investing.
Exactly. It all plays a role.
So Apple, they're doing it all.
They are innovating, growing, appealing to the socially conscious investor.
No wonder they're so popular.
Nope. It makes sense.
But before we crown Apple the king,
Okay.
let's talk about our last company, SoFi Technologies.
SoFi.
Or SoFi for short.
They're relatively new.
They are, but they're making a splash.
In the financial world.
Fintech.
Yeah. Their platform is all digital.
Interesting.
They're going up against the big banks.
Wow.
Offering everything: student loans, personal loans, investing, even mortgages.
All online.
All digital, catering to a generation.
That wants everything on their phone.
Exactly. And you know what really got the attention of
What?
institutional investors?
Tell me.
SoFi got a national bank charter.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
It is a game changer.
It is. So what does that actually allow them to do?
Well, it gives them a lot more freedom,
Okay.
more flexibility to operate like a traditional bank.
So they can offer more.
Exactly. Wider range of products and services.
Wow.
They can take deposits.
Just like a regular bank.
Yep. Make loans, hold reserves.
Yep.
It opens up a lot of possibilities.
And investors love possibilities.
They do. They see that potential.
So they're not just a tech company anymore.
Not really. They're a major player.
In the financial world.
Exactly. But that also means more regulations.
Right? More oversight.
They're in the big leagues now.
So how are they handling that?
They're taking it very seriously.
Okay. Good.
Building the right infrastructure,
Yeah.
the processes to make sure they're meeting all those requirements.
It's got to be a lot of work.
It is, but they know it's important.
Yeah.
Investors are watching, and SoFi knows that maintaining that trust
Right.
and transparency is crucial.
It sounds like they're walking a tightrope.
It is disrupting an industry
Right.
while also playing by the rules.
That's a tough balance.
But if they can do it,
The payoff could be massive.
exactly, they got a bold vision.
And a ton of potential.
Absolutely, a lot of potential.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground,
We have from GameStop
trying to reinvent themselves,
to SoFi.
taking on the giants,
It's pretty wild to see how these companies,
are attracting these investors.
and for such different reasons,
It's all about
diversity.
exactly different approaches for building their portfolios.
Right. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
They're looking at everything.
Yep. Different sectors, different risk profiles, different growth stages.
So you've got GameStop with that high risk, high reward.
Yeah. Then you've got the crypto play with Marathon,
Mm-hmm. The steady growth of AMD,
Palantir with all that data,
Apple the giant.
and SoFi the disruptor.
There's really something for everyone.
There is, and it shows that there's no one right way to invest.
Exactly.
It's all about figuring out what works for you.
Your risk tolerance, your goal.
Exactly, and that's where all the analysis you sent in,
It comes in handy.
it gives you that starting point
Yeah.
to understand what's driving those institutional investors.
To help you make your own choices.
Investing is like a puzzle,
I like that analogy.
and each piece of information, each analysis helps you see the full picture.
So as we wrap up,
Okay.
let's turn it back over to you, the listener.
We've analyzed these companies.
But what are your thoughts?
What stood out to you?
What insights did you get from this?
Exactly.
Which company do you think will thrive?
In the long run.
And why?
Yeah, should you follow the big money?
Or blaze your own trail?
There's no right answer.
I know, that's what I love about this.
It's your journey.
Your portfolio, your financial future,
We've given you the tools.
the insights.
Now it's your turn.
This is where the deep dive truly begins.
It is.
It's about what you take away from this.
From our conversation.
Because ultimately,
It's your investment
in your future.
that matter most.
So dig in
Do your own research.
and come to your own conclusions.
That's what makes the deep dive more than just a podcast.
It's a learning experience.
We explore these complex topics together.
And remember,
Investing has risks.
and past performance.
It doesn't guarantee future results.
Do your homework.
And if you need to,
Talk to a financial advisor.
before making any decisions
Thank you all for joining us
on this deep dive
into the world.
of institutional investors.
Until next time,
Keep learning
keep exploring.
and keep diving deep.
You know, it's fascinating to see how each of these companies, they're all so different,
They are.
but they all tap into a specific part of the market, right?
They do, appealing to different kinds of investors with different goals.
Exactly. They highlight how institutional investors are looking at everything.
Not just one thing, no, they're diversifying those portfolios.
It's not about putting all your eggs in one basket.
Not at all. They're spreading the risk, looking for opportunities everywhere.
You got the potential for huge wins with GameStop.
Right. High risk, high reward.
And you got the crypto play with Marathon Digital Holdings.
Yeah, right in that wave.
Then there's AMD, steady growth, reliable.
Dependable. And Palantir, tapping into that data-driven world.
Oh, and of course there's Apple, the giant, the icon.
Always a safe bet. And then you have SoFi, shaking things up.
The disruptor.
Yeah, changing the game.
It really shows you that there's no single right way to invest.
Not at all. It's all about finding what works for you.
Knowing your risk tolerance, figuring out your goals,
Exactly. And that's where all the analysis you guys sent in comes in.
it's so valuable.
It is. It gives you a starting point
A place to begin.
to understand what those institutional investors are thinking.
And why?
And then you can use that to inform your own decisions.
It's like having a peek behind the curtain.
Kind of, yeah.
So as we wrap things up here,
Yeah.
let's turn it back to you, the listener.
We've talked about these companies, analyzed them.
Broken it down.
But now, what are your takeaways?
What are your thoughts?
What stood out to you the most?
Yeah. Which of these companies do you think will be the most successful?
Long term.
And why? Do you agree with the institutional investors?
Or are you going to forge your own path?
There are no right or wrong answers here.
That's the exciting part.
This is your journey.
It's your portfolio.
It's your financial future.
We've given you the information, the tools, the insights.
Now it's up to you to take the next step.
This is where the real deep dive begins.
It's about what you do with what you've learned.
Exactly. It's your investments that matter.
And your future.
So keep exploring.
Do your research.
Dig deep. Come to your own conclusions.
That's what makes the deep dive more than just a podcast.
It's a journey we take together.
A collaborative effort.
Learning and exploring these topics together.
And always remember,
Investing involves risk.
past performance.
It's not a guarantee of future results.
Do your due diligence
And talk to a financial advisor.
before making any decisions.
They can guide you.
Thanks for joining us.
on this deep dive
into the world
of institutional investors.
Until next time.
Keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deep.